So this is obviously a very difficult but incredibly important film. Ursula, can we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about what drove you to this subject matter and why this was the film you wanted to make?
Well, I was, can you hear me? I was called by producer Simon Chin, who probably lots of you knew because he made Man on Wire and Searching for Sugar Man and some great films. And it was about maybe a month after the whole scandal broke. And he said, look, I've got some money. Do you want to make this film with me? And I said yes, probably quicker than I've ever said yes to anything, because it just seemed like the film that needed to be made. And I was so lucky to be asked to make it. And it just felt like it was, you know, the story of our time. That, you know, there was this sort of, at the time, this movement that was just catching fire all around the world. And it felt to me like there was something really big in the air that was changing. And, you know, and obviously as a woman, as a human being, I think probably every single woman that I know, and some men too, have experienced some kind of version of this, some kind of abuse of power, some kind of harassment, some sort of assault or attack. And so it's, you know, it's very personal. I think it's very personal for many, many people. And I just felt that if I can say something about this and I can get people together to talk about it, you know, it was a privilege to be able to do that.
And so, Erika, what was it like when you first heard from Ursula? How did you decide to participate in this film?
Well, it was actually Poppy.
Oh.
Poppy Dixon.
Poppy.
Our producer, who called Erika, who's over there, who did an amazing job. Do you want my?
Yeah, I was hiding it. So yeah, I got a call from Poppy, and I just really liked what she had to say. I liked the conversation she wanted to have with the audience. I wasn't really looking to share this at any point with anyone, but once I made the decision to do so, I wanted to be a part of whatever change I could. And I felt like they were going to tell an important, more in-depth story that you couldn't really put together by reading articles or catching tweets or headlines. And I thought it would be important for people to see us sharing our own story on camera, so that you could hear it from us. That's my baby. She hears my voice.
Hope, what about you? What was your decision like in terms of deciding whether to participate?
Well, until the first article came out in the Times, I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't told anyone in my family. I hadn't told my best friend. The only thing I had shared up until that point was when I got back from that trip to New York with Harvey, I told close friends, a couple who lived next door to me, and I only told them about the stunt he pulled with the hotel room. But I started crying when I told them, and I said, look, I can't quit. I needed the money, and I had no reason to quit. I wasn't telling anybody what happened. I said, but please just keep an eye out for me, because I have to get out of there. And when that article came out, I was so taken by how brave Rose McGowan and Ashley Judd were, because they had to assume that the story would be squashed, because it had been for years, and he would find out and make their lives hell. And they did it anyway. And that day I said online, because I heard about it online, I said, you don't know the half of it. I worked for this sick fuck right out of college. And that was 40 years ago. It's been going on more than 3 decades. But I still didn't say anything until that night. I heard on the news that he was suing for defamation. And I just thought, the hell you are, not this time, you know? So I emailed, I think, Jody Cantor, and said I can corroborate what they said. And Ellen Gabler contacted me from the Times. She was the first person. I mean, I didn't say anything for 40 years, and then I told a reporter in the New York Times before I even told my sister, with whom I've been living. And once I made that decision, that was it. I knew I wasn't going to just say that and not back it up. But it was because he threatened those women who stood up.
Yeah, that's incredibly brave of you.
It was
Brave of everybody.
Thank you. But I was literally standing on their bravery. I mean, it's made a huge difference.
So how have your lives changed since you broke your silence?
Well, I suppose I've gone down a road I wasn't expecting. I, too, never told anyone, including my husband. And I didn't intend to. I thought this was something that I would carry and squash on my own. And sharing it has made me have to reflect on it and on the experience, and made me look at the many times in my life that I have felt mistreated in some way simply because I am going through life as a woman, and I've had this conversation with countless women, and how odd it is that we all have this in common, and how wrong that is, and I don't think that because it has been this way up until now that is just the way it is. I refuse to believe that anymore, and I think that once I started talking, I was no longer willing to stop. So I've spoken to a lot of young people since sharing my story, because although it is certainly the grossest thing I've shared with people, and it has made me feel very vulnerable and uncomfortable. Once I put it out there, I felt like I got a little bit of my power back from that experience, and I've had the privilege of holding space for so many other people who have shared their stories with me. And I've been incredibly touched that they have been willing to share with me, and so I continue to open up the floor to others to speak about their own experiences. So I've developed a really lovely experience from all this in sharing with others, and so I'm very grateful for that. That's been something I was not counting on.
For 40 years, I've been, and I keep saying this, it's only recently, just before the story broke, that I have been trying to find out what's wrong with me for 40 years. Why am I depressed? Why can't I just snap out of this? Thinking that I could literally think about Harvey and not have horrible feelings. It's not like I had flashbacks. That was all put onto other things, to have this incredible sense of humiliation and shame over the slightest failure or perceived failure in my life. And until recently, I would have said, PTSD. I'm not a soldier. I wasn't in combat. I understand it happens to this. You would never trivialize someone else's trauma, but we tend to trivialize our own. And I think it's important, not just for women, for children, for anyone. The first thing you have to do is you have to name it. You have to say it out loud, even if you're the only one in the room, because it takes the power away from it. But then you have to get help, and I've been trying to get help for depression. Well, depression wasn't the problem. The trauma that caused the depression was the problem. So finally I'm getting that help, but I haven't been able to work for 12 years because you live on, the fight or flight mode that you're in, you start to live on that. It depletes everything. I mean, I weigh less than 100 pounds now. It ruins your health. I had to stop working, couldn't understand why. That was more humiliation, more shame. And it's only recently that I've realized that all of these decisions that I've been making were based on something that, this underlying, again, humiliation and anger, rage, that I couldn't where is this coming from? And I think the best thing to come from that is that I know that, and I can tell other people there's a way to handle it. And there's nothing wrong with you. Your body did what it was supposed to do. It just got stuck there. And it shouldn't ruin your health. You know, I'm not working yet for pay, but I am doing what I used to do professionally, but for veterans groups now, and will be shortly for groups that help children. That's great for me, and I think I can help them. And so again, I'm grateful, not for the experience, but especially for the bravery of Rose McGowan, of Ashley Judd, and for Ursula and Poppy for putting this film together, for you for showing it. I'm rambling, but that's how it's changed my life.
It's so important. Ursula, I'm wondering, why do you think this, you've done such a good job of documenting this incredible facade that Weinstein put up and all of the money he spent shielding himself from these allegations and the vast conspiracy of people who were complicit in making sure nobody knew about this. Why do you think that wall crumbled when it did? Why did it happen in 2017 and not in 2014 and not 5 years from now and not in 1998? Why then?
I mean, from what I've been able to find out from, what the research that we did, I think, as Kim Masters from The Hollywood Reporter said, in the industry, his power was on the wane. I mean, for sure, that's, the company had been sold and the Weinstein company wasn't doing very well. So I think sort of in terms of money, in terms of clout, he was no longer what he had been. And, that's perhaps a sort of thing that was bubbling under the surface, but perhaps that made people feel slightly more emboldened. I don't know, the journalists that were working on this story for quite a long time. But I think there was something in the air as well, and I think it's to do with Trump being elected. I mean, I'm from England, but, the repercussions, the reverberations of Trump, obviously, we had the women's marches. There was this sense that there was a pussy grabber in the White House. And I feel there was this kind of rage that maybe had been under the surface for a long time that finally could find sort of expression in that. So maybe it's, a combination of lots of things. And he was physically weakened. As I said, in the industry, his power wasn't as strong. And mainly, there were journalists doing really, really solid investigative work. And there were women who were brave enough to speak. I mean, in the end, that's why the story broke, is because those people went on the record, and then people like you went on the record. And that work that journalists, that Ken Arletta and Ronan Farrow and Jodie and Megan from the New York Times, they've been working on the story for a very, very long time. It's not like people hadn't tried to break this story. It's just people were too afraid to go on the record. And so I think it's like all these things came together, and there was something in the air that made it sort of erupt at that time.
That's super interesting. What do you guys think?
I think that that's true, but I also, we look at Jeffrey Epstein, and I was upset that Acosta was, put in the cabinet to begin with, that he was approved. Epstein got a sweetheart deal. But even Acosta said he doesn't know how he got away with a get out of jail 6 days a week card. So who is it that's exerting the pressure? And what do these guys have on other people that they're doing their bidding? I mean, that's really frightening. And one of the reasons I'm here is I'm still afraid that Harvey's not actually going to go to trial. I know that the lawyer prosecuting his case wants to bring him to trial, but who behind the scenes has been protecting these guys? And they're They're all over. I said earlier, Denny Hastert, he was the Speaker of the House on the Republican. We didn't hear about him molesting boys until after he left Congress. So
Yeah.
somebody protects these people.
Well, it's a great point, and one of the things that I think you've documented so well here is this culture of male impunity. This idea that men just get away with the same thing over and over again. So, why, over the course of researching this and obviously living this experience, what fuels that culture of male impunity? Why can men get away with this? Erika, what do you think?
Such a huge question.
I know, sorry. Just only the single biggest question of our times.
So I don't have all the answers yet.
Okay.
But I do think that question is fueling a generation of leaders who are saying, look around, this is not working. I mean, we are in crisis in more ways than one, and I think that this is somewhat ground zero for that crisis, from an environmental standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, and so I like to think that it is hopeful that this story broke at this time, and then it was picked up and spread like wildfire, and that women everywhere decided to stand up and say, enough with the rich white guys leading us into destruction, enough with feeling less than, and enough with that half of the table running the show. This is not working. And I mean, we see it with young people and the environment. They too are saying, enough. You guys you're not doing it. It's not working. And so I think when things are bad enough, when things are dire enough, there's a tipping point. And I hope that that's what this is, that this will be seen in history as a time when women started taking the reins, and a balance of power shifted. I hope, we are still in the midst. We have not breached the wave. We're still waiting for justice and for respect and equality in every line of work and industry. So this truly is what I hope is the beginning. But with all that hope, I have a certain amount of trepidation that not enough has changed. That we are not as far as I'd like in this process.
Because, in the end, it is about money and power. And I kind of think if Harvey Weinstein was, a poor guy, a man with no resources, he probably would be in jail by now. And, I have to say I'm very proud that this is going out on Hulu 7 days before the beginning of his trial. Because I feel that over the past year, the women's voices have been silenced, in the sense that, his legal team has done their very best to discredit these women, to dig up these photos showing them looking happy after alleged assaults. And I feel that, he and his team have kind of taken over the news agenda. We've kind of heard a lot about them, and then the actual women who have the courage to go to take them to trial, they've sort of dropped away. So I just feel this is such a good time for people to be talking about this film and watching this film, and not just for him, but for all these other Epstein and etc. Who are out there who have not yet been taken to justice.
So we have to wrap up, but I just have one more question for each of you, which is, what does justice look like to you for somebody like this? What would justice feel like? Hope, what do you think justice is?
That to me is the hardest question. I can answer the other ones. There's no restoration for what he did. You can't restore Rosanna Arquette's career, Mira Sorvino's career. These are talented women who just disappeared. Key decisions in my life were informed by what happened to me. And it's not me, it's so many people. And it happens to children. So what is justice for somebody who does that? You take away their freedom. I mean, that's what our system allows. That's all you can do. I hope it happens to him. He has no shame, I don't think. He's lost his power. He's lost his position. I think that matters. But, okay, so that would be justice. There's no restoration. I mean, I'm glad that the women who got some money from him have gotten some relief, but that doesn't change the parts of their lives that are gone.
Yeah. Erika, what do you think?
I think justice could look like a trial. I'd like to see him go to court like any other person who would have committed these crimes. I would like him to hear the women that he has hurt, and have to be held accountable for that. Because, as you say, if he was not a man of means, this not only would not have happened for 40 years, but he would have been held accountable a long time ago. So, there is no getting that back. There is no reparation, as Hope said. But I think a trial and being called the criminal that he is, because these are crimes. I think that's as close as we're going to get.
Ursula, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think any dangerous criminal predator should go to jail, and there's many others. So yeah, that is an important element of justice. But I think what you're saying is right. There's no reparation. There's nothing. You can't give back years and years of somebody's life, and that is, in the end, that's appalling. And so I think the most important thing that we can do is listen to people who speak out, whether they are men or women. Listen to them, look after their mental health, support them. Financially as well, a lot of the women that we've spoken to have not worked for years since this happened. They've not worked during the last couple of years after they spoke out, because, they're still slightly looked at with a little bit of suspicion in the industry. So it's not like you spoke out and everything's fine now. So I think it's about us as a society looking after each other and making, surrounding the people who do have the courage to speak out with our support. And to me, that would be, in a very small way, some kind of reparation.
Great. Well, thank you to Hope and to Erika for sharing your stories, and thank you to Ursula for making this film. It's out on Hulu. You'll be able to see it again if you want, but you should also tell your friends. And thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really, really wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.